Welcome to the module on individual to organizational leadership for the enterprise management lesson on leadership in a joint environment. At this point in enterprise management, we enter a transition in the overall material as we move from individual leadership skills to organizational leadership skills. This contrasts sharply with individual level leadership you might be more used to in your unit. We will study the differences between individual and organizational leadership by exploring each. Take a few moments to compare and contrast individual and organizational leadership in your own words below. Now we will hear from former Command Sergeant Major Chris Ferris from U.S. SOCOM about individual and organizational leadership.
Hello, I'm Command Sergeant Major Chris Ferris, the SOCOM Senior Enlisted Leader, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the Enterprise Management course. One of the things that will be emphasized in the Enterprise Management course is leadership, and you need to understand this about leadership. Leadership is a constant. Too often we hear exercise garrison leadership, exercise combat leadership, and I find those to be a fallacy. Whether garrison, combat, or an embassy, those are simply environments in which you will exercise your leadership. The key to understand is how to adapt your leadership in each environment. The Army definition of leadership is the ability to influence others and provide them motivation, direction, and purpose to better an organization or accomplish the mission. In this course, we are focusing on the joint, interagency, intergovernmental, and multinational environment. Leadership exercised in the two I's, interagency and intergovernmental, is critical. You have to stay cool, calm, collected, and work collectively with others. It is not a very directive environment as much as it is a collegial environment. How would you exercise your leadership in that environment in order to be successful? This is one of the key components to the old saying within SOF of tactical operations with a strategic impact. But that is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. Sure, the good edge of the sword might be the capture of Saddam Hussein or the killing of UBL. But the bad side of the sword is deploying to Colombia in support of the President's protective detail and then getting caught in a scandal with Secret Service members by going out on the town and trying to get hookers. That had a huge impact. It was embarrassing to the force, but more importantly, it was embarrassing to our nation. The Admiral and I had to sit there on the phone with the Secretary of Defense and answer his questions about what was going on in Colombia, because he had to answer not only to the White House, but to Congress. These are the things that ripple uphill. Too often we talk about things rolling downhill, but they also roll uphill when we make a lack of judgment, both ethically and from a leadership standpoint, on the ground. So why is it critical that you understand this organizational leadership paradigm? You'll be in a position, whether in the ops world or as that senior enlisted in the very near future, where you will influence force management, training, budgets, and manning. And if those are looked at from a take care of your buddy standpoint or take care of the team standpoint, rather than the holistic view of the entire organization, left and right and up and down, it can have very serious second and third order consequences. During this course, you will explore specific examples of how that poor decision making at the organizational level has real long-term negative impacts, not just for your unit, but also out there in the real world where we operate every day in a gym environment.
Special operators are already experts at individual leadership. You have to be an expert at individual leadership to succeed at the tactical level. You have most likely led in combat, and you would not be where you are now without substantial success. Individual leadership is what we do as small unit leaders. Individual leadership focuses on team building and individual development. With 5 to 15 members on the team, the key to success is to take the team from the forming phase to the performing phase as quickly as possible, keeping in mind there will be some storming and norming along the way. As an individual leader, once you reach the performing phase, you keep the individual team in cohesion as long as possible. As individual leaders, you often find yourselves in a position of our team against the world. You do everything for these individuals to help make them successful. You know the value of supporting a team member who wants to move on or leave the military to attend college. However, you will likely push back against team members moving off the team to fill other positions within the organization. Organizational leaders tend to look at the organization and the other organizations within the enterprise holistically. They understand the organization needs an effective throughput of personnel, money, and resources in order to grow and remain postured for the future. The organizational leader understands the team concept exhibited by individual leaders and strives to maintain team integrity by providing realistic expectations for assignments and rotations. Organizational leaders are expected to make decisions considering the needs of each in the following priorities: enterprise, organization, individual. Once you move to the organizational level, you'll have to support an effective throughput of people. Likewise, other organizations within the enterprise rely on people from your organization in order to survive. These other organizations may include component schoolhouses, TSOCs, SOTFs, or etc. They will begin to wither if not supplied with high-quality fresh minds ready to take on new challenges. At the organizational HQ level, we have to allow people, money, and materials to flow freely. Let's see how well you recall the points about individual and organizational leadership. For the following slides, you will see a statement by a leader. Select whether each statement is individual or organizational by clicking that box. Hit Submit to continue. For this scenario, you are an E8 working in the Battalion S3 for 1st Battalion 5th Special Forces Group A. On your desk, you proudly display a team picture from your last deployment. Standing next to you in this picture is your old buddy Randy. Randy served under you when you were a team sergeant, and you were both involved in a number of operations. Randy stops by to see you and has a troubled look on his face. Randy asks you if you could pull some strings to rescind his PCS orders to report to the schoolhouse, which is the Special Warfare Center and School in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Just 2 weeks ago, you handed the team over to Randy to continue your legacy. The thought of losing Randy this soon is quite troubling to you. You begin leading yourself down the road of a false dichotomy. Does Randy stay on your old team, or does Randy go to the schoolhouse? Reflexively, you think it is best to keep Randy where he is currently serving. Reflectively, you determine it is not as simple as keeping Randy on the team. 5th Special Forces Group A is responsible to send one senior E7 to the schoolhouse. So if not Randy, who will it be? After talking to Sergeant Norris in the S1, you learn the alternative is Dave. Dave has never stayed on a team for more than 1 year, and because of that, he doesn't have a high degree of tactical or technical competence. He is 4 years from retirement and is counting down the days. Younger operators don't look to him for guidance as he is just biding his time. Your gut tells you Dave should go to the schoolhouse because you don't want to lose someone like Randy from your old team. Let's take a closer look at the decisions you could have made and the potential outcomes for each. Click on the boxes to learn more. Dave to schoolhouse. When Dave goes to the schoolhouse, he doesn't bring a high level of professionalism. He's typically late to meetings. Dave garners a reputation for having a could-care-less attitude and a weak form of leadership. This attitude and leadership will affect a generation of special operators who are expected to execute our nation's strategy in the 70-plus countries where special operators are deployed every day. In addition, he represents his unit at the schoolhouse, and other instructors come to think that his attitude and leadership are indicative of his unit. Worst of all, the commander at the schoolhouse will be transferring to your unit after his tour. Dave forms an indelible image in the commander's mind of your unit's NCOs and their commitment to the mission. The commander will arrive at your unit with a serious trust deficit toward his NCO leadership for 2 reasons. 1, for keeping a poor performer like Dave around for 20 years. 2, for sending an obvious underperformer such as Dave to the schoolhouse. This shows immaturity and lack of decision-making skills on behalf of the senior NCOs at the unit. Randy stays at unit. Because Randy didn't go to the schoolhouse, he stayed on the team for 14 years straight. He was never able to expand his professional development outside his unit, and as a result is burned out, divorced, and broke. He wonders how things got to this point in his career. Since the reflexive decision was made to keep Randy on the team, he missed the opportunity to grow outside his unit. In addition, countless operators at the schoolhouse missed the opportunity to learn from an experienced, well-respected operator. Randy to schoolhouse. Randy will bring a breadth and depth of experience that will allow him to grow as a professional in a challenging environment. Randy represents the unit positively, not only because he is technically and tactically competent, but also because of the positive energy he brings to new challenges. He realizes that he represents himself and his unit at the schoolhouse, and that he is expected to learn and contribute to the organization. After 3 years at the schoolhouse, Randy has passed on his extensive technical and tactical expertise to many operators, earned his bachelor's degree, and created an innovative data tracking app that he will implement back at his unit. The decision to send Dave was reflexive based upon finding a short-term solution of convenience that did not take into consideration the long-term result, which was not best for the organization. Dave leaving wouldn't create a void in the unit, and it was also convenient to keep Randy, even though long-term he would have been a better choice for the schoolhouse because of his experience and expertise. However, sending Dave was a disservice organizationally because Dave did not have the honed skill set, work ethic, or professional attitude to go to the schoolhouse. Correct. It was individual-based decision-making because the E8 focused on what was best for the team at the current time. He did not consider what Randy could have brought to the organization as a whole. There is often a hard gap we have to cross when you go from individual to organizational leadership. You are beginning this transition into organizational leadership. As you anticipate the transition soon in your career, there are 4 important points to remember. Click on the numbers to learn more. An important part of shifting from an individual leader to an organizational leader involves communication. Organizational leaders interact with the organization as a whole. To borrow a metaphor from biology, you no longer lead a small part of the organism like a toe. You interact with the whole organism. The toe is where the boot sole meets the asphalt. This is where the soft operator trains to be. However, you're now a vital leader of a much larger ecosystem. You communicate with more people. You use critical thinking and negotiation to anticipate, assess, and communicate risks and opportunities. Your actions as an organizational leader impact a much larger unit. Throughput is important for both small unit individual leaders as well as organizational leaders. Both receive people from various parts of the larger organization, like TSOCs, the schoolhouse, or SOTFs. Whereas individual leaders seek to hold on to their people for the benefit of their small unit, and rightly so, organizational leaders must have the benefit of the organization in mind and receive or place people appropriately. Individual leaders shift from focusing on their unit to focusing on the organization, from the benefit and growth of the individual to the benefit and growth of the organization. People, money, and property all must be processed through the organization in order for it to grow and thrive. You trained to be the toe pounding the asphalt as a soft operator. But if you only send the toenail clippings of the organization, the disgruntled Daves, to broader parts of the enterprise like the schoolhouse, the TSOCs, and the SOTFs, we shouldn't expect much back from the greater ecosystem. On the other hand, think in a visionary manner, put the organization first, and send wise, competent people to fill key spots, and you will not only benefit your organization in the long run, you will benefit the entire SOF community. As an individual leader now, and as organizational leaders at some point in the future, it is important for you to understand that you are part of many nested relationships. Although SOF operators at the tip of the spear might be tempted to think they carry the entire country forward into war, the fact is SOF operators are part of a larger organization, Higher Headquarters and U.S. Special Operations Command. U.S. SOCOM, in turn, is only part of a very large military. Finally, it is important to be consistent every decision you make as an organizational leader. The way you interact with former unit buddies is different now because you are putting the enterprise and organization ahead of your one-on-one partnership with them. Recalling our hypothetical example, don't let your buddy Randy influence you to pull a favor for him just because you are in a position of power. There will be a leadership test at the end of the class. One of the topics it will cover is the transition from individual to organizational leadership. How well can you summarize that process? A summary is ready for you, but with a few blanks. Select the correct statements that complete the summary. Let's take a moment to look at your initial response when you were asked to compare and contrast individual and organizational leadership. Have the materials in this lesson reinforced or contradicted your initial thoughts? You have learned about individual leadership, organizational leadership, and key points about the process of moving from one to the other. As you transition to organizational leadership in your careers, you will need to focus on your communication with the organization as a whole, effective throughput of people, personnel, and money, the nested relationships from your unit to the U.S. whole of government, and finally, the way relationships adjust as an organizational leader.